Hi, welcome to Sites Family Farms. Today we're going to have the next installment on our garden planning calendar for the year 2021. We're in Zone 5B, but these weeks do work wherever you are and whenever you're watching this. This particular installment is for 10 weeks before your average last frost date. For us, it is February the 19th. I'm a couple of days behind, but nothing is too far gone to not be able to use this information. The first is seed purchasing. We've talked about this a few times, but I think it's going to be important this year. It's already kind of shown to be harder to get the seeds that we want when we want them than it has been in years past. A lot of the places that we talked about before that were out of stock are starting to come back in stock. I'm not sure if that's going to be on a limited basis or if that's going to be a continuous thing moving forward. I have noticed that corn and bean seeds are much more expensive than they have been in years past. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with the corn and soy crops that were lost in past year's inland hurricane or derecho. But if you haven't purchased all your seeds or don't know where you're getting them, it's past time to look into that. So now we have all of those seeds. The next thing we need to consider is where we're going to keep them and how we're going to store them so that they don't go bad and we don't lose the viability of seeds that we've worked hard to find this year. Down in the link below, am going to include, or down in the description below, I'm going to include a link for the box that we use to keep our seeds. It is a Plano plastic waterproof box, and it's got some dividers in it that I really like. They can keep different kinds of seeds separate from each other. So if we're going to be planting flowers, I'm looking for flower seeds. Or if I'm planting the bulk stuff like the beans, the corn, some of the pumpkins, things like that will be in their own section. And then a little area for, and in our case, seed packets for seeds that we saved and some pollination bags, things like that. So in the winter, we try to keep them freezing. So ours are in an unair conditioned and unheated garage bay in the winter, and then in the summer we keep them in our basement. Certain seeds, if you save them, need to go through a period of that cold or they won't germinate. Now we also need to keep them dry, so what we use is silica cat litter, and I put it into a coffee filter, a paper coffee filter, and staple the edges shut so there's not cat litter everywhere, and that will absorb as much moisture as we were ever hoping to see in there. And obviously not opening it and letting it sit in the rain is going to help. So there are a few things that we can actually start seeds for inside now. We've talked a little bit about herb gardens and things we're going to be using by a window, but these are actually plants that we can start outside. And I'm going to give a little bit of information, or at least my thoughts and experiences with these particular varieties. But the first one we can do is cauliflower. I've never had any success for it or with it. It has been very difficult to get to come to a uniform head, and it takes so long. In our area, we don't have much of a spring. These are better planted in the fall, but certain climates, if you have a more gradual shift from winter to summer, maybe that'll work for you. And if you have any ideas for how to get cauliflower to head more consistently, go ahead and put them down below. Next one is broccoli. It does need those same cool temperatures for 100 to 150 days, which we just don't have. So we actually kind of start these later in the year so that they can go through go into fall, and they do seem to do a lot better. But certain climates can start them now. Cabbages of just about all kinds can be started now and be planted outside with 3 to 4 weeks before the last frost. That does come with something of a caveat. I would certainly plan for plastic covering or cold frames or hoop houses or something along those lines. Last year we put everything in the garden at right around our frost date, and we're fine. 2 weeks later we had a hard freeze where it got down in the 20s, and we lost a large majority of what we had planted just because I wasn't prepared with enough cold frames and plastic to cover effectively. So it kind of brings me to the garden goals that we have for this year. Earlier this year we purchased a greenhouse frame. It was cheaper than I could have built it with lumber costs the way they are. Um, and we've been going back and forth between using greenhouse plastic and greenhouse panels. Um, in our area, and specifically at our house, we get a lot of wind, and it is a consistent wind, but we have some pretty serious gusts. So that's why I'm concerned about the plastic, which is a much less expensive option. But I'm wondering if using greenhouse panels, like a hard, they come in 3/8 and 1/2 inch thickness plastic panels, is that going to be a cheaper solution in the long run because they might last a lot longer? The next question that I have for everybody is, do you think we should put in gravel for the floor, or do we need to just leave it dirt and it'll be just fine? I'm open to options. We have a pretty high water table, but I think that area should be fairly dry. And most of what we're growing in there will be on some long tables that we picked up for basically nothing right around Christmas. The next big step that we're doing this year is we have what I consider a modified Ruth Stout raised bed garden, but it does lack certain things. So this past fall we tilled another area that's another 50 by maybe, I'd say 50 by 60 for row crops and squash and things like that take a little bit more space. But I still don't want to do a lot of weeding, just because I hate weeding and I end up just not doing it. So we are going to be purchasing a polypropylene ground cover that I found on YouTube from some other garden channels. I'm hoping it does well. They seem to have very good reviews. They're getting 3 to 5 years out of it, which is pretty good. Especially that I'm going to have to cut for each individual plant, and hopefully we can get them in similar areas next year. I don't think it's going to be worth it for corn, but we'll have to see how that comes as it goes. What I am going to do is I'm going to use that for certain beans, cabbages, greens, pumpkins, and melons, and I'm hoping that it will do what everybody tells us it will, is keep pest problems down to a minimum, keep weeds down, and hopefully hold in moisture like our Ruth Stout beds do. If we need to amend that as the year goes on, we certainly will. But that is 10 weeks before our last frost. Love to hear your comments down below. Thanks. Have a good night.